Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show, Schlegel, and excited to be on here with you.
Me too.
We're a day now, another day out. It's Tuesday. Normally, this would be the day where you start getting out there, getting after it, getting some work in. No Big Ten championship this week, so that will not be transpiring. Dudes are back in getting a workout though, starting to feel good. Can't practice because you don't have a game, but they are getting some work in the weight room, starting to feel good. Starting to come out of it a little bit, come out of that funk. They're trying to talk to some guys. By the way, big happy birthday to our linebacker coach, James Laurinaitis. Schlegel, I believe he's turning 38.
Happy birthday. Woo!
Yeah, I think he's turning 38. And I think Brian Robisky, a.k.a. Robisk, is turning 37, I want to say, today. So you're getting up there, man. Yeah, that's how time works, Schlegel. Some people say time is confusing. Some people say time is a flat circle. But I'm sure James had probably had better birthdays when he was playing for the Buckeyes and maybe what he's had the last couple of years being on staff. But how are you feeling now? As we get out of this thing, everybody's upset. You're in shock Saturday, start to get upset and angry on Sunday. Monday, it's starting to pour out. And normally you'd be to the point you get some acceptance, some anger this week that the season is, as you knew it, with goals are kind of over. Whereas this year, tonight, they will release the college football playoff rankings. I'm doing a selection show on XM, and we're going to talk about that. I'm fairly excited to kind of see where the Buckeyes are going to be. I wouldn't say crazy confident, but I am fairly confident, I think more than 50%, that Ohio State is going to get a home game. The more I look at it in metrics and all this crap and losses and quality wins and everything else, I feel like there's a good chance that Ohio State's going to get a home game. In legal court proceedings, Schlegel, if you are looking at a civil trial, it's called the preponderance of evidence. If you're greater than 50%, that's the threshold that needs to be reached. So I feel like the preponderance of evidence would lead us to Ohio State getting a home game at this point. No, there's no guarantees, but I feel like that's where it is. We'll find out a lot tonight and more on Sunday. But where are you at as you see this now and with everything that's going on?
I like that you said that. Where I am right now, it's Tuesday. It's another day. You've had Sunday and Monday to digest it. I would say this, I get a little sickening about the way fans, put out Ryan's address and
that's a thing that came out.
Stupid shit like that. That bothers me, right?
Yeah.
Even former players that go back and culture. And I understand that you won games, bro. I understand, but I would say this, one of my best attributes is that I have great self-introspection, and I understand, I was a good player. I wasn't a great player. I was a good player on a great team with great other people, man. And living that reality. And I also go back and I'm thinking what are the other things that we could have done? I'm talking about outside of play calling and stuff that everybody wants to get into because strength coaches, players, they can't do that. That's coaching, right? That's on them. Your job is to go execute. And I just think about those small things that you and I discussed in that game. And that is the why. When you're not at your best, which we weren't in a lot of different areas, red zone offense, third down conversions, completions, the turnover battle, the yardage on special teams, missing 2 kicks. And you had those the week before versus Indiana, and then it happened in this game, right? Those things matter. So again, all that to the side, where I am now, I guess there's only one thing to do: win the whole effing thing, AKA Major League back in 1988, right? With the Indians, which is what they should be called. Now they're called the Guardians. But that, honestly, that's the mindset. That's what everybody has to have. And I'm on that train. So that's how I choose to be on that train that way, guys. We all have a choice. You can be disgruntled, or you can say, go win this, because it's just different this year, man. You got an opportunity. And I'll say this to you. You said about having a home game. I kind of want to go on the road. I kind of want to be in a hostile environment. I just think arguments like that, man. I want to go on the road, man, in my opinion. Give us Tennessee at Tennessee. Let's see what happens.
Well, I think the Vols would take that. Their fans would be very happy with that. The one thing is, there's Schlegs, you got to win your final game in the stadium.
Yeah,
These seniors could potentially have that chance. It'd
I
be a
agree
unique
with
one.
that statement. Yeah.
So, for some of those guys, as you watch Cody Simon and Jack Sawyer and Donovan Jackson and Emeka Ibuka, and like leaving the stadium for your last time in a loss, incredibly difficult.
That way, yes.
That way. Oh, it's tough. So that would give you a little bit of redemption and maybe a positive feeling for your final experience in there. I want to go back to something you said though earlier, Schlegs, about former players and guys putting out addresses. Like, I mean, if we're going to say that, we can put some names on it then. If there's guys that are being that
No. I wasn't saying former players did that. I wouldn't say former players did that. Those are two distinct things. And I'll go back to the other statement I said about Tennessee. It was literally only to be like, I want a home game. I want to see a Tennessee team or whoever from the South play in the weather in the North. I would like to see that. That's more of a competitive advantage for us. I kind of just like it as, hey, the Big Ten goes into SEC where everybody talks about it's so hard to play and just go boat race somebody. Like, I would love to see that to kind of squash that rebellion. Again, the best thing for the Buckeyes would be to have a home game, first round of the playoffs, in the shoe with our fans. It'd be a great experience for the Ohio State University. But let's go back. Those are two separate things. It is the game and it is the game, right? But there's a way of handling it too. And when people throw out that they've never been in the building about their culture or whatever, you don't know shit. I'm sorry, you haven't played in 20 years, man. I take it like whatever, right? You haven't been in the building.
Who are the guys that are saying that? I want to know.
But and I'm not going to throw out names. Like, go look it up. Like, I'm not going to say that. I will say I'll be more than happy to have a hard conversation. Everything I put on Instagram or Twitter machine, I would say that directly to your face. But some people won't. And that's just how I look at it, right? So my thing is this. I am always going to be supportive. It was not the results. We said it here, man. Like, you can't not throw to Jeremiah Smith in the second half. Like, the dude cannot have a reception in the second half, right? Like,
yeah,
things had to have changed. Like, there's certain things that happen that should not have happened. That's not on the players. That is on the coaching, right? And we're real about that, Bob. And like, those are questions that you and I would literally go in there and ask, right? What about the gap? Why are we running like stretch zone multiple times when it wasn't working? Like, I just want to know why, right? And I can digest it, but I'm gonna ask that. I would ask that question if we're sitting down having a beer. I would ask that, right? Yeah. So that's how I approach everything that I do when it comes to the media, because I've lived it. I've lived it as a player at two levels, right? I lived it as a coach at two levels, and I know what Ohio State has done for me, not only in my career but in my life. And I know the type of men that we bring in that building, and I will always be in support of the men that are in that building, regardless of whatever somebody does to try to, when they make a change, or if they make a change or not. It doesn't matter. I'm always going to be supportive of the Ohio State University and Buckeye football, period.
Yeah. And I get that. And Schlegel, you were there.
And that's just an opinion. And it's just my opinion. I will say this. I love the fandom and the emphasis that people put on this game, because it is the game, man. Like, I got 5 of them, but my most cherished one is 2005 because of all the circumstances that went into it, Bob. Like, if my kids were like that would be the hardest question. When you die, who would you leave the 05 pants to? I'll give somebody like, hey, Sam, you want the national championship ring? Sure, take it. Why? I was coaching the 05 one, playing in that game. Like, that's just a different one, man, because of all the things that went in, because then that child would know that they're my favorite child. and I don't have a favorite.
Yeah. So you're one short. You got 2 pairs as a player. You got more as a coach. So you're in a good spot there. I only have 3 and I've got 4 kids. So I think there's probably going to have to be some sort of knife fight.
I just borrow Uncle Schlegel. I'm going to borrow Uncle Schlegel.
Yeah, that's the only logical solution for how to solve that problem. I wore my 05 pants to the game, Schlegel, and I even wore the 05 Big Ten championship ring. I was trying to like harness some of the positivity from that, feeling good about it. And I don't, you know me, I'm not a jewelry guy. I don't wear that stuff around it all. So yeah, I understand that. I understand people are upset. That's why I'm never going to tell someone don't not be upset. The passion is what makes this great.
Yes, man.
You know, and if you think, like, there's people out there,
just be realistic.
well, fire Ryan right now. I'm like, there's still a national championship to play for. And people can say that doesn't matter. And I distinctly remember, Schlegel, in 2022 sitting there, and people said that, and then all of a sudden you go to play Georgia in the Peach Bowl, and you're beating them. And all of a sudden it mattered a whole heck of a lot. It doesn't undo what happened. Like that's part of it. The loss to Michigan this year, the 0-4 over the last 4 seasons, that's part of it. And Ryan's got to live with it. He's got to own it. The players do. I mean, there is a pit in everyone's stomach surrounding that. But to say, like, guys, and that's what drives me crazy, that people don't know the culture. Because I'm around there, Schlegel, probably. I always joke over the last.
You're there more than me. You're there more than anybody.
I always joke about this. I was like, since 2002, I go, there's probably only a handful of people that have spent more days in the Woody. Now, maybe not hours, because there's been coaches that have been there. I go, but I came back every offseason and trained and worked out.
Yep.
A lot of those guys are all come and gone. You know, I know Hartline and James and some of those guys are back in there now. I still go in, 3, 4, 5 days a week, get a chance to go over and practice, watch the guys. Like, I would be honest if I was like, this isn't good. There's things that are happening. And there's been things that have happened that I necessarily haven't agreed with. And there's conversations that have been had about that. But to say like these guys don't understand it, don't embrace it. And
terrible.
Sometimes, so it's like the embracing of it is the squeezing it to death. And that's what's hard, where you've got to take a step back. Like you begin to squeeze it so tight that you begin to smother it. It's a little,
it's almost disabling.
Yeah. I mean, I know that you're a big fan of Mice and Men and Charles Steinbeck, and tell me about the Wabbits, George. You got Lenny with the little mice in his pocket. You just squeeze them to death because he wants to love them so much. And I feel like that there's that element to it. Like you saw guys that wanted to win so bad that like play so hard, and coaches, it's like, hey, we're going to win this. We're going to do the very best. Like we're going to be tough. We're going to be aggressive. And sometimes like you lose the forest through the trees, and understanding like, hey, winning the game is what's important. And you know what? Sometimes I think winning the rushing battle is a reflection of winning the game. And if you throw it well, you can get a lead. Then you can run it. You get your other team out of your opposition out running the ball. Like those things can ultimately happen as well. But it felt like there was just this pathway, and we're going to get there. I know Ryan's taking a hard introspective look at this and trying to figure out and trying to solve some problems. It's not easy, but we're going to get some results tonight, Schlegel, and we're going to get a chance to see. Listen, you got to stop for a second because we got Bill Bender.
I'm sorry. I love Bill.
I know you love Bill. We're going to put your thoughts in a box. We'll get back to him here when we're done with Bill because he's got a lot of knowledge, and he was at the game. He's from here, covers national college football. He has a very healthy perspective on things. So we're going to get to our guy, Bill Bender, next. But first, attention athletes, parents, protect what matters most with Export mouth guards. Trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Export guards scientifically are tested to absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both teeth and your brain. Export mouth guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including patented use of carbon fiber, custom fit to your unique smile with 3D printing technology. That means more protection, better performance, max comfort, clear communication. Focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Go to exportguards.com/Bobby. Save 15%. Export, protect what matters most. Bill Bender, Sporting News, up next.
The Big Play Sports Network. Download the free app today to watch all of your favorite hosts on demand.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer-flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like... I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer-flavored beer. All right, welcome back in to the Bobby Carpenter Show. And now we're pleased to welcome in, like we do every Tuesday, our guy, Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Give him a follow at Bill Bender _92 on X. He's been putting out great content all year long. All right, Bill, let's break down what we saw here this Saturday. You're at the game, up in the press box, get a chance to get a feel for everything. Kind of what are your initial thoughts coming out of Saturday?
Well, at halftime, you're sitting around with the other writers and you're thinking, Ohio State just scored, tied the game at 10. All they need to do is take the lead. Take touchdown lead, press Michigan to play offense a little bit differently, and it never really happened. And I've said this for a couple weeks. I felt a little bit like it in Indiana, more so Saturday. You can feel the tension in that stadium. You feel the anxiety, the pressure you guys were just talking about. I almost think it's not that Ohio State isn't taking this game seriously. We know they are. I think it's gone the other way to the point where they're putting too much pressure on themselves, similar to how it was when Michigan was losing to Ohio State there for a time period, probably when you guys were playing during those Carr Tressel games where a handful of plays made the difference.
Well, the handful of plays made the difference because we made them. Right. And those were good teams, which those teams were very different than the Rich Rod and, whatever Hoke teams. I mean, tip your cap to Sharon Moore. Like, they're just doing what they do. And all right, so go back. Like, what Bob had a good list of some defining moments. I think you're absolutely right, Bill, about that second half. When did you think, when was the defining moment where we could have taken it and we didn't?
Caleb Downs' interception. Got to score after that. And that's, to me, the one you score there. Then the pressure starts to come on Davis Warren. Michigan was content to run it 3 yards at a time with Khalil Mullins, and he busts one there at the end. But that was kind of the moment for me where I thought, okay, Ohio State puts it in here. It's either going to be 13-10 or 17-10. And now Michigan's not down, especially if it's a touchdown, they're down by 7, and it's a completely different game. Obviously, I know you guys have probably talked about the game plan in terms of running right at Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. When you run 17 times between the tackles for 41 yards, that's got to be frustrating. I know it was windy, but I thought Ohio State played well when they played with tempo, and everybody's asking why did Jeremiah Smith not have the ball in his hands at some point, even on a receiver screen, little things like that to get him involved.
So when you look at this now, Bill, and you've been covering college football for a long time, obviously that's one game. It's a big game. And it's kind of, these rivalry games are kind of unique. Is there anything in your mind that has changed? Like, did you see anything substantive in that game that would change your opinion about Ohio State being able to move forward and have success after losing to a Michigan team that, quite frankly, was very average this year?
Right. Well, the playoff changes all that. Every other playoff team probably had a dud at some point along the way, except for Oregon, and Penn State didn't have a dud. They lost a tough game to Ohio State. So, when you're talking about Georgia, they were a heartbeat away from losing to Georgia Tech. Tennessee lost at Arkansas. Alabama has 3 losses. I do think they're going to get in. I don't know if we're going to talk about that in the next segment, hopefully. Sure. I think they will get in ultimately, though. So everybody has faults. And Ohio State defense kept them in the game the entire game. I don't think they did anything wrong throughout the game. One run. Khalil Mullins, one kind of fluky run, a couple other plays, a couple other pass plays. That was it. So, and it's like you said, these guys care. I'm around Jack Sawyer in Pickerington a little bit. I just know people that know Jack. I will always respect his passion. I know he's making a lot of headlines for what happened at the end of the game, but I was telling you guys a story a couple years ago. He took 10 minutes to talk to my son Grant about football and coverages. He didn't have to do that. You guys did that when you're pillars of your community, and he didn't have to do that. He talked for 10 minutes. So I will always respect Jack Sawyer, respect his passion, but I do think some of that pressure and that just we want to beat them so bad that you kind of forget the things that could get you to win the game. And maybe that's an oversimplification, but that's what I'm seeing.
No, that's great. That's what goes into self-introspection of how do you overcome that, right? What do you got to do internally within the building in terms of that you thought about the game to flip the script, right? Because we've been doing it one way for so long in that building, right? Basically it was a little different with Tress, like Trust, we called them, it was just Michigan, right? Then Urban came in and brought in the team up north type deal. And that embodiment and like all the different stuff and time for war and those things, like, what do you got to do? But it goes into like, you got to do something, right? So I want to go back to this though. And when you look at our guy, like we haven't even talked about the flag planting, Bob. You want to go there? Because describe that as because you cover college football. Like what should be done about the flag planting? Because I got it from both sides, right? I'm just listening to people. It's like, well, you had 60 minutes to do it. Well, I know when we played in this game, right? Like it was, my dad taught me, respect your opponent, never fear him, right? But then at the end of the game, boom, shake hands, I'm going to the locker room, and I'm going to celebrate with my teammates, right? Well, none of that constituted celebrating my teammates by playing a flag on somebody's deal. It started with Baker Mayfield. What's got to be done with that mindset? Because to me, that's a very trivial kind of bullshit, immature mindset. It's my field now, right? Like that, like I don't get that. You had 60 minutes, and they're like, oh, they had 60 minutes to do it. They should have shut them up. I'm like, yeah, the game's over, and then I'm going to go dance on something. Like and this is not an Ohio State, Michigan thing. I'm just talking about the national landscape. Like, what are your views on this?
Okay, so I don't think Michigan should have planted the flag. They did that 2 years ago. It's like, okay, been there, done that. You're a 7-5 team. Just go be happy, be off the field. Not sure Ohio State should have reacted the way that they did, though, because it escalated. You have cops on the field, it mars everything, and this is what happens. Do I think flag planting should be illegal? Not necessarily. I mean, what are we going to do next? Say you can't celebrate in the opposing locker room if you win a game? It comes down to what you said, Schlegs. I really thought hard about this with the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. I do think there is a respect element that's been lost, and some of that was triggered by the ongoing things that happened with Michigan the last 3 years off the field. There's no doubt. Social media contributes to it. But when you guys played versus how long I've watched this game, one of the defining images of this rivalry is Ohio State guys tearing down the Michigan banner during the 1973 game. There's the Woodson, David Boston thing, and there's a couple little things along the way. But in general, there was a hatred yet respect. Yeah. And I think it's just hatred now. And I don't know that that's going to be healthy moving forward. And, I don't even like it when coaches wave goodbye to fans. I don't. Why? Like, that's just an unnecessary move.
First off, you don't play. You're a coach. You call the plays. Like, your players are the ones that freaking did it, asshole.
Well, I could ask you guys back and say, when Jim Tressel coached Ohio State, I was asking a former player this who played for Earl Bruce over the weekend. I said, when Tressel played, you guys just said it, you called him Michigan. He placed an emphasis on the rivalry, but I'm guessing it wasn't overbearing, right? Like it was part of the culture, but not an overbearing part. And, in that game, you just said it, Schlegs, that there would be a handful of games. I always go back to 2005. Nobody thought you guys had a chance to win late in that game, and Troy Smith and Anthony Gonzalez, and you make the plays and you go from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was always an emphasis placed on. I feel like, I don't know if it's the coach's bill. Like when you haven't won it as a player, there's an internalization of that too, especially guys, and you brought up Jack and some of the guys have been here 4 and 5 years that had never done that. And it got here on the heels of that epic run where Ohio State had really dominated. I think, whatever, they'd won 17 of 20 or 18 of 21 or something like that. And so I think that obviously had amplified it. The thing with the planning to me, and Baker Mayfield's made a point of this, he's like, yeah, we do it. We do it every year at Red River. Well, at Red River, it's also played at the Texas State Fair, and it's a neutral field. And so it's kind of like taking that field. We had a thing, and it was before Schlegel got there. Ohio State and Wisconsin used to go back and forth. And it was a very good rivalry there in the early 2000s. And we had C. Grant come up in 2002, and he's giving his speech on Thursday night, talking to players only. He's like, we're going to win, and then we're going to dance on the W. And the year before, I guess it was Wisconsin danced on the O. Ohio State had done it a couple years before that. It had gone back and forth. And after that game, I remember like Tress, and we didn't do it, and I don't remember how, but there was coaches like, listen, act like you've been there before, get off the field, go sing to the band, go celebrate with your parents, and like show some respect for what had just happened. And I've always just thought that that's probably the best way. You can go celebrate with your fans that are there and the band and everything else. I have no problem with it. But like the flag planting to me, there's only one way that's going to end. And this wasn't just an Ohio State thing. You saw it, Bill, across like the college football landscape. Everybody else watched and said, we want to do that when we win. And then you have these underdogs win on the road, and holy smokes, like it was a wild environment.
Right. And is the NCAA going to legislate this now? Possibly. I mean, when you got schools getting $100,000 fines like Michigan, Ohio State did, then you saw it at Florida and Florida State. And they've had incidents in the past in that rivalry, obviously. NC and NC State don't like UNC, NC State. They don't like each other either. I think it just takes away from the game on the field. I mean, that's what I ended up writing Saturday. We've spent probably the last 72 hours talking about flag planting and sportsmanship and lessons that you can teach your kids in the 6th and 7th grade versus Ohio State and the psychological challenge that lies ahead of trying to win a national championship after losing to your rival, which, by the way, can be done. I go back to Alabama in 2017, lose the Iron Bowl, turn around, and I still remember what Paul Feinbaum told me later. He said that team wore it like disrespect when they played Clemson, when they played Georgia. They won a national title, and in this playoff field where not one team really stands that far above the rest, a national title is going to be possible. It's just the psychological, can they move forward part that honestly you could contribute to that by not putting that much pressure on them. I know they're college kids, but I mean, that's where we're at.
Go out there and execute, man. Go out there and have fun, man. Just win the whole damn thing. That's the mindset. Pretty simple to me.
One more question, Bill, before we take a quick break, because you went to the Alabama route, and I always find that interesting because Kirby Smart's won 2 national championships, but he's 1-6 against Alabama. I know that Georgia and Alabama isn't like the oldest and truest of rivalries, but it was at peak Kirby and Saban. I mean, that was it in the South and nationally as well. How do you square those things, as a fan base, that your coach can't win a certain team, but also has got a pair of national championships? Because it seems like it's taking a lot of heat off down in Georgia.
Yeah, and, they're playing Texas now in the SEC championship game. What a bizarro world we're in. And Georgia got lucky, quite frankly, over the weekend. They play 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech. Brent Key could have won that game. This Georgia team's just been one half at a time. But I think when they beat Alabama in Indianapolis, and I was at that game, you could tell that one probably meant more than the SEC championship games and the rivalry games that they played in the regular season. And it took a lot of the heat off Kirby. And then the next national championship coach is there for the taking. The only two with Mac Brown out. Mac Brown got, kind of a dirty out at North Carolina. They should have let him coach the bowl game, by the way. Kirby and Dabo are the only two with national titles. It's there for Dan Lanning. It's there for Ryan Day. It's there for Rhett Lashley. SMU, if he can win an ACC, it's there for any of these guys to go and take, and then you're immediately in that club. And I think it changes who you are once you get that first national title.
Oh, it's a blood transfusion. It is, man. We talked about it when we won in 14, man. Like, whenever anybody that wins championships, won state championships in high school, win a national championship as a coach, like, it is a blood, because you see what has to happen to get to that level. Like, the air is rare there, right? And like, what does it take? You can never go back. Like, that's always going to be the standard and why it's so important. And I like that you brought that up, man. It is there for the taking, but you got to execute.
All right.
Yeah, and I think they're going to get an SEC team in the first round. I still think they're going to get a first round home game, 6, 7 seed, probably, maybe 5, depending on how they treat Penn State. But, if Tennessee rolls into the shoe, game on. I mean, that's going to be the next step. You're in this first playoff. You've got a ticket. It's going to be fun. I don't know what to expect. I don't think you guys know what to expect. It's going to be a lot of fun to figure it out. And Ohio State has the seat at the table, and that's what's important right now.
Well, it's first time for everything. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about some of these upcoming games. The playoff rankings are going to be released tonight. How much is that ultimately going to tell us too? So we'll dive into all of that here with our guy, Bill Bender, next, coming up on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show, and we got our guy Bill Bender on. Now, Bill Bender covers college football for the Sporting News and does a great job. However, he is a proud Ohio Bobcat alum, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the games this weekend, then talk about some of the rankings. And a game that probably not a ton of people are talking about, the MAC Championship. It's going to be at noon. It used to be on Friday night, Bill, and I was excited talking to my brother to try to get up to Ford Field. I've got kids' games on Saturday, so I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. But Ohio has a chance to avenge an earlier loss to Miami, win their first MAC crown in over 50 years. I mean, they're 2.5-point dogs. Are they going to be able to get this done?
I hope so. I mean, that's the one I'm selfishly allowed to root for Ohio in that one, especially when they're playing Miami. And, the running game's been really good. I think Tim Albin's done a fantastic job given how many guys they had go in the portal and that they're still able to get there. And their defense has been great over the last 5 games. Both teams playing awesome defense. It's funny, as an OU grad, my biggest rival should be Miami in theory, and I get that. But when I was there, and because I follow the basketball team too, and I married a Kent State grad, I like my wife, but I still don't like Kent State for some reason because they were so good in basketball when I was there, and the Akron rivalry was really real. But I've never hated Miami. That may be a demerit on my OU grad, but I'm going to definitely be rooting for the Bobcats on Friday night or Saturday, and I'm definitely allowed to.
Well, you get some solace, Bill, because Kent State's 0-12 this year, and they're probably the worst team in the history of college football. They're pretty darn bad. All right, some of the games this weekend, you got the Big Four on Saturday with the Big 12, SEC, Big 10, ACC coming down the line at noon, 4, and then 8 o'clock. If Clemson beats SMU, does SMU in your mind still get in, you think?
I think they should. I think they've done enough. I mean, or what is the value of these games?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? I think the score will matter on some level, where if SMU gets blown out by Clemson, and by the way, Dabo is 8-1 in the ACC championship game.
Yeah.
So the pressure is a little bit on the Mustangs there. But as long as they keep it close, I think they get in, and that's where Alabama starts to sweat because it might push them out. I think in tonight's rankings, Alabama will be ranked ahead of Miami, which means they'll have the drop for that final spot. But if SMU loses, I still think they would deserve an at-large bid. But the committee didn't really treat them like that. It took them 3 weeks just to get into the 12-team field.
Yeah, it's kind of dicey because, I mean, you got other ones that are at play here, right, when it comes to seeding in the first 4, because we've seen so many of these projections, and you got Boise sitting there as like the number 4 seed, right? And they're, again, Boise, Mountain West, here we go, only losses to Oregon by 3 at Oregon early in the season. They're playing UNLV. How much of an impact does that have? Because now you got Iowa State, Arizona State. So if SMU wins, like they could jump up and they would be that one. No, it wasn't them, right? Oh yeah, they would be the 4th, right? Potentially. What are the different combinations that you see actually happening in this mix?
Well, I think the Big Ten and the SEC champion will be the top 2 seeds no matter what. And how that impacts Ohio State is one interesting layer to me is if Oregon beats Penn State, do they drop Penn State behind Ohio State, which they probably should based on head-to-head, but what do they put weight on these conference championship games and the extra data point? It'll probably be the difference between a 6 and 7 seed, honestly, between those two. I think Arizona State could leapfrog Boise State if they win convincingly in the Big 12 championship game. They've played very well over the past month. They'll be missing their receiver, Jordan Tyson, this weekend, but they're a fun team to watch. It's funny because I have vivid memories of that Ohio State, Arizona State Rose Bowl, and this team kind of reminds me of that Arizona State team with Sam Leavitt playing the role of Jake Plummer. They've got some good defensive players. Cam Scatterby is about as fun a running back as you can watch, and I think they could leapfrog Boise State. And Boise State UNLV, that's the best game Friday night because it's a play-in game. The team literally that wins that game is going to the playoff. But UNLV, whose quarterback left the team, might get into the college football playoff.
It's pretty interesting. And that UNLV story, we talked about it, back when August, September, right at the beginning of the season when he chose to depart, you go to the backup and all of a sudden you're playing for a chance to play into the CFP, which is pretty remarkable for the Rebs. You were talking, Bill, there's Alabama, You've got South Carolina, you got Ole Miss, all kind of hovering around the back end of this, the 3-loss squads. And I think a lot of people are in understanding that, what Alabama will probably get in of those 3, unless something weird, squirrely with Clemson, and maybe they bump them out. Lane is making this argument, for Ole Miss to get in, obviously. And so if the games were played on Twitter, he'd be the best with everything. But one final element of it, I think South Carolina, Bill, is probably playing the best ball of all of them right now. However, I don't know what you do with that head-to-head matchup with Bama. I think the results on the field have to count for something. And, they lost a tight one by 2. I think it was 27-25, maybe 25-23 to Alabama. And, so that's there. But, I would say of those 3, the team I would want to play the least right now is the Gamecocks.
Right. They're hot. Lenore Sellers is playing great. They've got an awesome edge rush. They have a lot of elements that they've played as well as anybody, but the committee tends to honor the head-to-head thing. And, it's hard to justify putting South Carolina in, or I don't know what justification they would use other than they're really hot right now against losing to Ole Miss, losing to Alabama. I had a clunker in there along the way. But Alabama, the one thing that could make this interesting argument with Miami, and I know Miami just lost to Syracuse, and I get it, and they have 2 losses, and they played with fire a lot this year. But their 2 losses are to 2 teams that have a combined record of 9-3 Syracuse, 7-5 Georgia Tech. So that's 16-8. And neither one of those losses was as bad as Alabama, what they did down in Norman. And they did not look functional at all in a 24-3 loss. And that's something they have to at least discuss, because otherwise it's like, I always make the joke with you guys about golf scrambles. Being down there at the Lancaster Country Club is like, I only get 1 mulligan in a scramble. You pay for that mulligan. You don't get 3. How many were you going to give Alabama?
Yeah.
Well, that's the point, because Alabama, you lost to Vandy, Tennessee. I get it. Okay. At Tennessee, at OU, all those games were at South Carolina, though. Your losses, LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, and now you've won 6 straight and you're freaking hot. Like, those have to – it's the same thing when you're like, okay, who should be ranked? Like, I don't know why anybody could conceivably put Tennessee above Ohio State right now in the ranking. We lost to Arkansas and Georgia. We lost to the number 1 team in the country by 1, and we lost to our rival by 3. Granted, it's at home, and granted, it's your rival, and granted, they were terrible, and they're 7-5. Bob and I were on that type of team when we beat a Rose Bowl-bound Big Ten champ Michigan team in 2004. Like, I get it, but there's no way there should be – again, eyeball ahead of us. It just makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, the Arkansas loss was bad, and one that should hang over there. And selfishly, I kind of want to see Tennessee, Ohio State on the field.
I do too.
I want to see how real it is, because Tennessee does have a good defense. James Pierce will be a first-round pick. Tennessee has a really good running game around Dylan Sampson. They've got the young quarterback that can play a little bit, but they don't handcuff him, but they don't let him throw the ball down as much. Nico Iamaleava, I've had to learn how to pronounce that over the course of the year and got it
Pretty
down.
Good job, buddy.
Not bad, but I'd love to see that game at night at Ohio State. I'd love to see it not too windy, but cold, just cold enough, and see what the environment is like at the shoe. Because as bad as Saturday was from cover to cover, a playoff win would re-energize this team, in my opinion, and it would get them to the quarterfinals, and then you're playing free at that point. And that's what they really should do, is just play free.
Absolutely, Bill. We appreciate it. We're going to free you up. You've spent way too much time with us, man. We appreciate it. I know you've got a lot to get done and some big articles to write as we get ready, and we're on the heels here of the final week of the season at the college football conference championships. And then I want to say, what was it? 18 days from now, I think on the 20th and 21st, Friday night and Saturday. I think we're going to have Shaq, Kenny, and Barkley doing the TNT halftime breakdowns, and maybe a couple others on ESPN in the evening. But it's going to be fun. It'll be something unlike we've ever had. I have to reshape this whole calendar, and I know that you're going to be doing a great job covering it all. So thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, appreciate you guys every week. I will see you next week. Let's keep this thing going.
So that's Bill Bender, the Sporting News. Make sure you check him out at Bill Bender 92 on X. Does a great job over there. And listen, we got one other thing out on our Twitter poll right now, our X poll. We've got a question about flag plantings we'll get into tomorrow. So make sure you get out there and vote. Give us your thoughts on it. All right, coming up next, we've got some headlines. There's some good things that are still out there, Schlegs. We'll talk about those next.
The Big Play Sports Network. Download the free app today to watch all of your favorite hosts on demand.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like... I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. All right, here's our headlines, and we're going to get to these pretty quickly. Schlegel, we got a lot of questions and comments. They're filtering in, number one in the YouTube, and then also stuff on Twitter as well. All right, Schlegel, want to get to first Rich Eisen, who I enjoy, on NFL Network, and he's a Michigan guy, and so it's good. We have good fun and some good banter back and forth. You know, with the Ohio State guys, they're in the NFL. But he threw this out here, which I found very ironic and very entertaining.
Don't you think?
Talking about the 4-game win streak and what that would ultimately do. And so Ben Axelrod picked it up and had an interesting comment on it. Rich Eisen gives the death of the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry for 3 losses. And Ben Axelrod accurately pointed out if 4-game win streak was enough to kill the rivalry, then it already died 3 separate times from 2004 to 19.
That's a fact, Bob. I mean, guys, right? 01, 02, 04, 05, 06, 07, 08, 09, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I mean, come on, man. Come on.
There's a lot of them in there.
Come on. There's a lot of them in there, bro. Like, what are you talking about, guys? It's all good.
So that's that's obviously a big part of it. Then
good job,
following the loss, and we've talked about this a little bit tonight, they're going to have the playoff rankings for the CFP, and those are the only ones that matter. But the AP poll still is out there, and I think the AP poll has had teams. No one's really deviated more than a couple spots, like up or down. And the AP poll that was put out, that's what we're talking about and kind of basing everything on as we talk right now. You throw it up there, has Ohio State number 7. And so in a couple hours, we'll figure that out this evening where everything is. But they're sitting there at number 7 today, Schlegel, and not in a bad spot. You'd like to be sitting there still in the top 3 and going to Indy to play with a victory against Michigan. Well, that didn't happen, so you have to recalibrate what you've got going on. All right, we've got some tailgate talk brought to you by Real Truck coming up next. We're going to answer some of your questions and comments that are out there. We'll dive into it. All that coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Get the most out of work, life, and all your outdoor adventures with top-selling upgrades for your truck. Guaranteed fit, free shipping, easy install, expert support, and thousands of dealers just a click away. Bring your truck to life. Real Truck. Upgrade today and save between $50 and $400 on select Real Truck products. Visit realtruck.com/specials.
All right, Schlegel, listen, it is Cyber Week, Monday, December 2nd, which was yesterday, through this Sunday, December 8th. Cyber Week at realtruck.com. They're offering savings up to 50% on select steps, running boards, truck bed covers, accessories now, like I said, through the end of the week. That is Sunday, December 8th. Visit realtruck.com/specials to learn more about these great deals to bring your truck to life for you and your friends and family. And listen, don't forget the promo code Bobby at checkout. If you spend at least $100, which it's very easy to do because there's so much great stuff, you're going to get yourself a free Real Truck hat, just like Schlegel and I. So Go to realtruck.com/specials and save up to 50% now until the end of the week. Go Bucks. Realtruck.com. All right. Got a couple tweets here for you that I put out. One from the guy Fisherman Schlegs, and this is a pretty good one. And it says, why don't they do creative stuff on offense? I think regards to Ohio State. They did it earlier in the year. And I think what's interesting with this is they did do some creative stuff earlier in the year. And maybe it seemed a little more aggressive. Part of that was due to the offensive line being a little bit better. And I think you have more time. You can be a little bit more creative with everything. And then another piece that was they did do a couple creative things. Like they tried to do the throwback. It didn't work. They'd run it a couple of times. They ran the option, which you got some nice yards on that. But you wish that there was a little bit more. And they started doing some of that stuff in the unique play action against Penn State. And it seemed like they probably could have pulled some more stuff out of the chamber. I think that there was a worry about, wind, deep balls down the field and some shots. And I think honestly, you try to maybe win the surest way as opposed to being aggressive. And I don't know if that was the best. Obviously, it wasn't the best course of action.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to like even in the games when we watched, over the last previous 3 years, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. there. It's like, honestly, break glass, boom, throw it to him. He had 2 PIs, Jeremiah Smith did. So, and again, when you look at creative, sometimes it's just like what's not working and what's not. And again, you got to go back, like where are their strengths? Where are their weaknesses? Let's go attack their weaknesses and maybe win first and second down through the pass to set up a short, which you saw on the tush push with the T formation, boom, to the left when Q had a big run. Like you're just going to have to manufacture some of those things because, again, the game of football is very simple. You got to win on first and second down. When you're not winning it and you're always constantly in third and long, it's going to be a rough day. And it was a rough day for both offenses until they started winning third downs. Michigan did because they were winning first and second down. So I wouldn't necessarily say, why are they not more creative? I would just say it's more of, why didn't we just necessarily do what we're the best at? And there's a lot of things that go in that, but I'll leave it at that.
All right. Next one coming from Ryan B. Smith. And this is a good one. This is one that we've talked about, and I know we're going to continue to talk about it. Why does it seem that Day and his staff are so fixated on looking tough and trying to pound the ball, even when it's clearly not working? We should be a team that's more aggressive passing the ball, specifically downfield, which would soften up their defense and help our run game. Now, Ryan did talk about this. The way they're playing some soft 2-shell zone. They're playing a 6-man box, kind of begging you to run the ball. The reality was, like, that's a spot that you should run the ball into. However, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, especially Mason Graham, he was very tough to block. Now, you could argue we should maybe –
I like that dude, man.
Some gap runs versus zone scheme, which I think that's in the postmortem you look at. And I think that there were ways to pass the ball, maybe do some tempo and do some more things that they just didn't get into. And that's all part of it. And saying why, like, okay, well, in the moment you wanted to try to be tough and run it. I think because you get hung up on the number, the team that's won the rushing battle has won this game basically 20 straight times. And so you want to try to make sure that you're following through with that, but you can go about that in different ways.
I think you already answered it. My biggest thing was when you have elephants on parade, when they're running zone and you're lateral and they're, perpendicular to you, like those guys are going to win that every single time. It's when we did the gap. And we've seen our biggest runs have been predominantly on the gap. And when you're just constantly going in the middle, like you have to change that up because those guys are so good. And also because, right, your right guard did not play very well at all. You got a different center, you got a different guard, and you got a guard playing tackle. So you got to get them on the move to create the different seams and looks because our backs can get there in a hurry. That's why. All
right. And we got 2 more strikes I think we got time for. We got Buckeye Empire. And this is a good one. This is why I want to go. I want to go to you with this. This is a really good one. After a losses like last week, who has the biggest role in getting your team back on track? It's a pretty good question.
Yeah, great question. Who has the biggest role? The leaders on the team, followed by the head coach, followed by the head strength coach. That's how it goes. The leaders are, remember, it has to be a player-led team. It has to be a player-led team. That's number one. And then it goes on to the other coach. I think they can do it. Go to you, Bob.
Yeah, I would say that, like you talked about it, the players. I mean, you're talking about Jack Sawyer, you're talking about Cody Simon, Lathan Ransom, your veteran players, and other guys on the
Line in the
defense.
sand, baby. Line in
You're
the
talking
sand,
about Will
Alamo
Howard,
style.
Mecca Ibuka, guys like that, Donovan Jackson. I mean, you're leaders. You're guys who have been out there, they've been playing a lot. Will take up like, hey, we got to bury. As much as it hurts, as painful it is, you ultimately have to bury that and move forward. You lean into it with your training this week. And then ultimately, the coaches have to show that leadership and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is our pathway to victory. As much as we want to win that game, we cannot go back and win it. I say this all the time. I wish I had a time machine, Schlegs. I've made a lot of damn mistakes in my life. I cannot go back and fix them. I try to do the best I can moving forward each and every day.
Coach with the chip on your shoulder. Coach with the chip. Let's go. Go, Tom.
And finally, Man in Black. What are your thoughts on Day in the Buckeye Nation? How hot is his hot seat now? And say this, like Ryan has done a great job outside the Michigan game. I mean, he knows it. Everyone knows it. Everyone's seen it. Like he's not going to go back and be able to beat Michigan. I think that they need to play well in this. I don't think you're going to fire Ryan Day this year unless there's just some sort of cataclysmic meltdown, which I don't foresee happening. There's too much leadership on this team, but you need a strong showing, I think, in the college football playoffs. And I anticipate that. This is very akin to the 2022. They got new life against Georgia, and you saw a much different attitude, a much different team in that Peach Bowl than you did in Ohio Stadium against Michigan.
And I would say this here's why it's kind of hot. Like, I understand what everybody's saying. You lost to the team, and how do we lose to Georgia in that game? Besides some of the bigger plays, you missed a field goal. Now, granted, it's a longer field goal, but you missed a field goal. In the game, you missed 3 field goals. The guys have been missing field goals. Special teams have been an issue, right? So, again, like I would say, yeah, you're doing great against everybody else, but things that got to get fixed that haven't been fixed, won the game, and 2 special teams over the course of the years. Like, that's how you've gotten beat in those big games. That has to be fixed. There's something they got to address. But to your point, Bob, like, I think they got new life in this, right? But the coaches – more importantly, the players, but then more importantly, the coaches need to coach with a chip and a sense of urgency, not out of fear, but out of competitiveness. Like, I'm going to go get that ass in this playoff. Let's go. Like that's different. That's not out of fear. That's trusting in my training versus fear of failure.
Absolutely. You don't, hey, Schlegs, when the crap hits the fan, I mean, you don't rise to your level of perfection. You usually sink to your level of training. And so hopefully they'll get that done. All right, that's it for this. We're going to have more of them, folks. Just keep throwing them in there. We're going to get to a lot more. Maybe we'll do a whole comment show at some point this week. So we'll make sure we can get your stuff answered. Coming up next, that was brought to you by Real Truck as well. Coming up next, we did a little trivia down at the game. And Nick from Big Play with some trivia brought to you by Swenson's in a partnership with them. We'll hit that. You guys can take a look at what the sights and sounds of game day were coming up next.
Get the most out of work, life, and all your outdoor adventures with top-selling upgrades for your truck. Guaranteed fit, free shipping, easy install, expert support, and thousands of dealers just a click away. Bring your truck to life. Real Truck. Upgrade today and save between $50 and $400 on select Real Truck products. Visit realtruck.com/specials.
All right. Let's take a look at Nick down around the stadium with Swenson's.
We're out here with Swenson's in Columbus for the game. Let's see how well these Buckeyes fans know their Ohio State trivia. Oh, wait. I-O. Found a Michigan fan out here in Columbus. What was Denard Robinson's nickname?
Oh my God, his nickname?
His nickname.
Oh my God, I have no idea. Dude.
The Shoelace.
The Shoelace?
The Shoelace.
Now, I do know that he was on the cover of NCAA football 2014. I know that much, so I don't know if that counts, but he was on there.
All right, let's do this. Who was the last Ohio State quarterback to beat Michigan in the game?
Justin Fields.
It was Justin Fields. Good job, man. We're hooking you up with a Swenson's gift card. I appreciate you playing with us. Thanks, bro. It is so cold out here. We've been out here for like 10 minutes. Our wireless microphones died, so now we're using my phone as a microphone. All right, we'll give you the hard one first. What was Woody Hayes' real name?
Woodrow?
It's Wayne Woodrow Hayes. That's all right. That's all right. Who was the last Ohio State quarterback to beat that team up north?
Stroud?
Stroud never did it.
Barrett?
Barrett, no. No.
Haskins?
No. Justin Fields. Justin Fields. Who is the only two-time Heisman winner in college football history?
Archie.
Archie Griffin is correct.
Archie Griffin.
Archie Griffin is correct.
Eddie George.
It's Archie Griffin. Archie Griffin. What is Woody Hayes' real name?
Woodrow Wilson Hayes.
Oh, Woodrow Wilson was a president of the United States. Who is the last quarterback to win the game for Ohio State?
Kid that's playing for Pittsburgh now.
Oh, he's got it.
I can't even name. Katie. Who's playing for Pittsburgh now? For the Ohio State quarterback?
Justin Fields.
Fields, yeah.
Justin Fields is correct. I love the phone a friend. All right, we're out here with Swenson's doing some Buckeye trivia. I hear Swenson's is special to you.
Yeah, that's where I met my wife. We worked in the one in Akron in the late 90s, early 2000s.
All right, so this is meant to be. I love the big hat as well. Who is the only two-time Heisman winner in college football history?
Archie Griffin.
I love it. Who's the last Ohio State quarterback to beat that team up north?
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields is correct. Thank you so much. Ready, go Buckeyes. We are freezing. Huge thanks to Swenson's. Make sure to go follow them on all social media and drive through there. Pick up a galley boy for your boy. We'll see you next time.
That's pretty good. Schlegel got a chance to meet with those guys beforehand. It was chilly. It was very cold out there, obviously early in the morning before the game. So appreciate it with our partnership with Swenson's there. Go check them out. Hopefully we'll get our guy on AJ tomorrow. Locked in at 12:30. See you tomorrow.